From JBS Studios in Greater New York, this is the JBS News Update with Teisha Bader.
I'm Teisha Bader with the JBS News Update for Monday, June the 8th, 2020. The IDF announced that it found and arrested the Palestinian terrorist who threw a brick from a three-story building, killing 21-year-old IDF Sergeant First Class Amit Ben Yigal last month. Ben Yigal, together with his military unit, was leaving a Palestinian village in the West Bank after conducting several arrests there when he was struck. The IDF tweeted today that after a large-scale operation with Israel's security services, an arrest was made, vowing to continue the fight against terror. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu announced that Israel was pulling back on the easing of some restrictions to help stop the spread of the coronavirus. This after an increase in coronavirus cases in the country over the last few days. Netanyahu said, "What we decided to do, first of all, is to hit the emergency brake. We stopped all moves to ease restrictions that we were going to apply in the coming days. We will check this again next week." New York Governor Andrew Cuomo announced some easing of coronavirus restrictions in New York. The governor told a press briefing on Saturday that houses of worship in the parts of the state that have entered phase 2 can reopen with safety guidelines and limited capacity in place. The governor said the metrics and health data across the state are very positive. And taking that into account, churches, mosques, and temples can reopen with 25% occupancy, stressing that attendees should still take precautions to follow social distancing and, of course, the cleaning and disinfection protocols required by the Department of Health.
25% occupancy is not as easy as 100% occupancy, but 100% occupancy is a mass gathering. You really can't do social distancing, et cetera. So phase 2, 25% occupancy. That begins immediately. Be smart, be smart. It doesn't mean you go to a temple or a mosque and you sit right next to a person. You have to socially distance. Watch on the entranceway and on the exit way when people tend to congregate going through the entrance or the exit. So we leave it to our faith-based partners to come up with a smart strategy about the way to do this. But this is an acceleration for us because we're doing so well.
This order from the governor does not include New York City, which is just beginning to enter phase 1. Argentina says it has adopted the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance's working definition of anti-Semitism, which, in addition to hate and attacks against Jews and Jewish institutions, also includes some anti-Israel language, like comparing Israel to Nazis. Argentina's new ambassador to Israel, Sergio Urribarri, said our Minister of Foreign Affairs made it clear in his resolution that its goal is to contribute to the fight against anti-Semitism in all its forms, collaborate in the building of a culture where hostility and violence have no place, and promote education for pluralism, as well as to encourage the remembrance and research of the Holocaust. Urribarri, by the way, just began his post as envoy to Israel this past Thursday. Israel was named the third leading startup ecosystem in the world. This according to the annual rankings report of the Startup Blinks Research Center, which looks at innovation ecosystems in 100 countries and 1,000 cities across the globe. Israel rose from 4th place last year. The 2020 report said Israel is known as the startup nation for a good reason. It is a relatively small country which makes a substantial impact on the global startup ecosystem. The United States was in 1st place, with the UK in 2nd. The Tel Aviv area, by the way, was ranked as the 7th leading city for startups worldwide, just below Beijing and Los Angeles. The Celebrate Israel parade has been postponed until later this month. Originally, the parade was set for June the 7th, yesterday, with plans for it to be virtual. because of the coronavirus pandemic. However, the Jewish Community Relations Council of New York said it was delaying the event in recognition of the protests occurring across the country and in memoriam of George Floyd and the many other victims of racism and hate in America, and instead yesterday, Sunday, convened an online conversation about racism called Space of Healing and Listening, an opportunity, the JCRC said, for Jews and non-Jews to hear messages from prominent African American community leaders in New York. Taking a look now at our programming for tonight on JBS for Monday, June the 8th. At 7:30, Israeli artists celebrate 70 years of cultural achievements. At 8, British historian Andrew Roberts recounts the history of Winston Churchill's Zionism. And Naomi Rao and Mark Romzo discuss religious freedom and the courts. That's from the 2019 JLC conference. At 9, Mark Golub sits down with Rabbi Uri Regev, who talks about issues of Jewish pluralism in Israel. At 10, Simon Schama discusses part 2 of his BBC PBS series, The Story of the Jews. And coming up next on Together During COVID-19, Dr. Sigal Sviri, director of the Intensive Care Unit at Hadassah Hospital in Kerem, speaks to Mark Golub about the ways in which Israel successfully cared for their COVID-19 patients and how she insisted relatives could visit their loved ones in the ICU. And that's the JBS News Update for Monday, June the 8th, 2020. I'm Teisha Bader. Stay healthy, stay well.